Okay, here we go. This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com. It is Sunday, September 15th, 2024. Norm in London. Mike in Buffalo. Busy week for the Maple Leafs. Nick Robertson's back in the fold, at least for 1 year contractually. Who knows if that lasts a year or a couple of weeks. And Max Pacioretty signing up to a professional tryout contract with the expectation he'll join the team for a year. Jani, good news on him to come. Could bolster the Leafs blue line with all of that size. And of course, they need more bodies back there. We have the rookie tournament going on, Mr. Augello, and in a couple of days. Training camp begins, another season of Maple Leafs hockey to come, but the Leafs Convo is already fired up. Episode 2, Season 7 is underway. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Norm. It's after a couple months of literally no action. It's nice to get back to, there was a flurry of signings, as you just mentioned, and we'll go through those. It was nice to see a blue and white jersey on the ice. See them playing their arch rival Montreal at Centre Bell, as you call it. And I was at the Sabres rookie tournament where there were 6 teams playing. So it's nice to be back in the rink. It's nice to be seeing players playing. There was a couple of fights in Buffalo, which was nice. And there was a fight, at least one, with the Leafs, with Jack Eye and God, I can't even remember who it was that. Oh, Chad Sharp fought. So we're getting going, and training camp will be, we'll start to answer some questions that we will have to answer before the season starts in mid-October.
This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com is where you're going to get your next vehicle. Ford employee pricing continues until the end of the month, but once we cross over into October, it is gone. You know how substantial Ford employee pricing is? It's the discount that I would pay on a vehicle. It's pretty much a loss for any dealership that sells a vehicle to you at this price level. The manufacturer does kick some money back. Long story short, it's a massive discount on just about everything in the fleet. If you're looking for a vehicle, you're in Southwestern Ontario, do what other OGs and converts do. Reach out to me. Norman.james@oakridgeford.com, or you can get at me on any social media platform. Let's talk about how I can get you on the road in a brand new Ford. We also have used vehicles as well. And I do really appreciate when we can connect over vehicle sales, because you know what it does? It helps us keep this podcast together, because without our sponsorship, we can't do what we do. Nick Robertson, a 1-year deal. Again, if this guy had a few 30-goal seasons in the bank, he could hold out and get what he wanted. He's a career in development, and there's just a lot of enticing things about him. Mm-hmm. However, he doesn't have enough of a portfolio to be able to stand pat and get what he wants. Tail between his legs, Mike, coming back to camp here, or do you think Pat Brisson basically gave him a little shoulder rub and said, hey, do your thing, be a professional. We'll get you out of here when the time is right?
I think this is a reflection of the fact that there were no options in terms of a trade. I mean, I've heard Chris Johnston, I've heard Elliot Friedman both say that they put him out there. It was widely known that he was wanting a trade, and the Leafs, they could trade him for a 7th-round pick, but he's a valuable commodity. They couldn't get the value that they were looking for, and at a certain point, it did not behoove Robertson to go through a holdout. It's like, okay, your best opportunity here. You have a fresh start here with Craig Berube as the new head coach. I don't think there was any acrimony with Sheldon Keefe and Nick Robertson. I think there was a lack of trust because Nick Robertson has not been a strong two-way player. Now, you want him to be a scorer, and he's got the tools to be that 30-goal scorer that you described. But he needs to be able to at least be an average defensive player. And he's not big. He's not strong. He is sometimes in the defensive zone, he's caught out of position, and that negates his offensive talents. So if you're going to put him in a position, which I think he should be, which is a second line winger playing with whoever the second line center is, John Tavares, there's been some stuff about Nylander playing center, which I think is bull crap. Mm-hmm. That's where he belongs. Now, he has to play better defensively. Otherwise, they cannot put him in a top 6 role. But this guy can score. Last year, he proved that he was durable. Last year, he did not get hurt. But if you look at his ice time, I think he played like 12, 13 minutes a night.
14 goals in limited ice time is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Like, it's the Leafs want him to come to camp and develop into the player they think he can be, or he needs to be, to quantify his existence in the league. The impression is that Nick Robertson either doesn't want to play the type of game that is required to be successful in today's NHL, or wants to go to another team to finally morph into the player that he believes he can be, whether that is just predominantly an offensive guy and can chip in defensively a little bit. And that's the conundrum here, Mike. He still has a lot to prove, and just to stay in your corner and wait to get what you want without the leverage doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. And even Brad Treliving echoed what you said, or you're echoing what Brad Treliving has said earlier this week. Look, Nick Robertson has offensive capability, but we need to see more of him. Craig Berube is the new head coach. This is a great opportunity for the two parties to intersect and potentially flourish in this new scenario.
I think Robertson was looking at the fact that they hired Berube, and Berube is, going to be stressing more accountability, more physicality. And that's not Robertson. But, it doesn't mean that there's no room for skill play. I mean, Vladimir Tarasenko played under Craig Berube. Skill players can play under him.
Right.
What he wants is a team that has multiple, and various skill sets. So there's a room for a Robertson, but he needs to at least check in on playing that defensive game. I hope they give him the opportunity, because right now, if you look at the left wing, and we'll talk about Pacioretty in a second. If you look at their left wing right now, if you had taken Robertson out of the equation, the slot would have been Bobby McMann as a second line left winger. Bobby McMann, I like Bobby McMann a lot. I was very excited for him to make the team. He played really well for stretches. He's not a second liner. He's a third liner. Maybe he could play center. Maybe he could play wing. Who knows? But he's not a top six forward. And if he was put into a top six role, this team would be hurting. Now, I think Robertson can play that, and maybe Pacioretty can, but we'll see.
OG's Conference, just so we're all on the same page, this hat, it's not a Florida Panthers hat. This is London Werewolves. This is my men's league team. We're in the semifinals tonight, trying to go back-to-back as champions of the London Men's Baseball League. It's the over 30 league. So in honor of tonight's game, and hopefully what turns out to be a win for the good guys, I'm wearing this. This is not a Florida Panthers hat, although this logo does kind of look Panthers-esque.
So Matthew Tkachuk is not your cleanup hitter?
No, I'd have him batting a little higher in the lineup, probably. Gritty guy, getting on base, stirring it up a little bit. Brisson and Robertson had to know that Max Pacioretty was in the fold and that they were going to bring him aboard. How do you think that affected them putting pen to paper?
I think that was part of it. I also think the potential of Easton Cowan coming in and playing left wing and stealing a job was also a factor. So, I think that I think it was more the fact that there was no avenue available in terms of a trade. I don't think Treliving was going to say, no, out of spite, I'm not going to trade the guy. If he got value for him, and remember, he's 20, he just turned 23 this week. He's had lots of injuries. Last year he wasn't. He's got a lot of talent. The kid led the OHL in goals. But he needs to round out his game. He got stronger last year. That kept him healthy. Now he needs to round out his game. He didn't. Maybe he thought his better opportunity was to get traded to a team like Utah or whatever. To play in the role that he should be playing at. The Leafs are going to give him that opportunity. Berube is going to give him that opportunity. Whether he seizes on it, that's yet to be determined.
OG's Conference, like the content, subscribe to the channel. The more support we can get from you with all of the things that we do, the further we can take these projects. Max Pacioretty, we remember him, as an integral component to what the Montreal Canadiens were trying to accomplish a decade and a half ago. And then injuries and meandered about, and obviously time with Vegas and late 30s now, Mike. Still some gas left in the tank, according to Brad Treliving, who gave him the opportunity and will likely offer him a spot on the team for a year contractually.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What do you think he brings? Because you're going to have a faction of the fan base who just dislikes anybody who's older joining this group. And then you're going to have others who believe it's that type of player who the Leafs need to help, augment what is missing and provide that leadership that potentially was there in ways, but not the right ways over the past several seasons as the Leafs kind of hit a brick wall every time they got to the playoffs.
I mean, look at it this way. This is a free swing.
Right.
I mean, basically, I spoke to someone who covers the Capitals, and Pacioretty is a good guy, good teammate. That was known from him being captain in Montreal. He's run into a lot of injury issues over the last couple of years, back-to-back Achilles injuries. Last year, he came back middle of the year, played, I think, around 50 games, only scored 4 goals, played in the playoffs. I mean, I looked at it this way. The PTO, everybody is saying, I only heard one person say, well, there's no guarantee that this is a contract. No, like I said, Pierre LeBrun is saying he's locked in. There's a 1-year deal here. I think Elliott said the same thing. So that means there is. So, the other report, whatever. But what is, I think, up in the air is whether he can still play. Now, he apparently came to Toronto a month before, worked out for the team. They were satisfied that he is, in good enough shape to be a contributor. Does that mean he's going to be a 30-goal scorer like he was in Montreal? No.
And they don't need 30 goals from him.
What they need is him playing on the third line and contributing 15 goals. If he can do that, then that's a win. That's like, this is what they did with Zach Aston Reese a couple of years ago. This is what they did with Noah Gregor. I think Pacioretty is a higher evolved player and someone with a better pedigree. And, he can mix in on second power play. He's still got tools, but the question is whether he's durable enough and whether he's fast enough after those 2 really serious injuries. And we'll see whether he is at training camp. And if he's not, then there's probably an out in terms of him not getting a contract.
Am I going to be able to stomach calling him Patches all season? I hate that nickname. We're not worried about him getting in the way of anyone's development here, are we?
No, I think it's insurance because this is the situation right now because he's slotted on the left side. So right now you've got Nyes, you've got McMahon, you've got Nick Robertson, Connor Dewar can play left wing and center. Pontus Holmberg can play left wing and center. The sort of random element here is Easton Cowan, who played junior as a right wing, but he's a left shot. Now, I believe yesterday he played on the right side with Fraser Minton and Gurbenkin in the prospect game. The Leafs might decide to leave him on right wing, which if he's on right wing, he's not making the team. If it's, maybe Calle Jarnkrok slots in on the left side. The left side is the issue with the Leafs.
And it's weird because there are a lot of bodies.
There are a lot of bodies, but there's a lot of bodies, but there's nobody of a high quality. And I'm not saying that as a slag toward Matthew Nyes. Matthew Nyes is what, 22 years old. He's unproven. I think he's got unbelievable potential in the way he played against Boston in the playoffs. I'm extremely bullish on Matthew Nyes, but he hasn't proven it yet.
Yeah, but he's still slotted in at number 1 on the left side, though.
Right. He's playing. Matthew Nyes, who scored 15, 16 goals last year, he's slotted as your number 1 left winger with Austin Matthews. Right. Now, he could blow up, and I think he will, but it's not a guarantee. So right now there's a lot of uncertainty on the left side when it comes to this team. And, unless they switch somebody over from the other wing, like a Jarnkrok, there's going to be a gap there. And that's why I think they bring Pacioretty in as insurance. And if they decide they don't want to play Cowan on his off wing, play him, keep him at right wing, I think that decreases his chances of making the team.
This is the calm before the storm, and when I say storm, it's not necessarily a bad one, but there are so many storylines going into camp this year. Like what
Sure.
Nick Robertson, the things he'll say, a lot of eyes on him and how he reacts to returning to a place he didn't want to, but has to. And Max Pacioretty's a minor story, right? I mean, if he contributes, he contributes. They're bringing him in to play a specific role, and he probably needs to. I can't see him coming out and setting the world on fire in camp, and that's not necessarily what the Leafs need. But Mitch Marner too. There's another story. The acrimony between his camp and fans, whether we're inflaming that or it's true. This could be the last year for him in Toronto, and how is that going to go? Right? I mean, will it be one where he plays the best he's ever played, the fans support him, but at the end of the line, which whenever that line does finally expire in the first round or all the way at a Stanley Cup, the Marner camp and the Maple Leafs may finally just split ways and cut their losses and say it was a pretty good career in Toronto and move on, and the Leafs will just have to bid him farewell and know that all of that money they may have spent on him can go to another player or two.
I will put on my turban and pretend I'm Karnak the Magnificent. And anticipate that on Wednesday, you're going to hear Mitch Marner say, I will talk about this now, and then I will not talk about it the rest of the season. That's what Nylander did. That's what Matthews has done. Good luck, Mitch, because this is not going away. Now, you may not be asked about it.
Does he need to be harassed about it all the time?
No. That's not. But it's not going to stop the conversation. I hope he can block it out, because if he can't, then he's not going to have a good season. And right now, the Maple Leafs are concerned with one thing when it comes to Mitch Marner: him having a good season. I've heard so much stuff about how he was practicing with Crosby and McKinnon in the offseason, and he's in the best shape of his life. Yeah, because he's got multi-million dollars riding on this season. Now, I will say this. I don't think those multi-million dollars are coming from the Toronto Maple Leafs. I do not think this is going to play out as a Nylander scenario. Because remember, last year at this time, I was in favor of trading William Nylander because I didn't think he was worth it. Because he was going to get paid well above his station. Now, he scored 40 goals, and he's been great the last couple of years, and he's been able to take away some of the parts in his game that had been the things that I focused on. Do I think he's an $11.5 million player? No, that's a Toronto Maple Leaf tax. It's like you cannot keep paying players over and above their worth. Now, I'm not saying he's not a great player. He is a great player. He's just not an $11.5 million player. And Mitch Marner and his agent are going to ask for more than an 11.5.
So is any player, sorry, Mike, is any player really worth what they get paid?
Yes. Yes, they're worth whatever the team pays them, but it's up to the team to decide whether they're going to pay them or not. And that's my point. Is Austin Matthews worth $13.25 million? Yes, because the Toronto Maple Leafs decided to pay him, and now he's their captain.
They did that with Matthews. Sorry, they did that with Nylander. They just can't afford to do it again with Mitch Marner, and that's where we're at.
You've got a crux coming up next year, and we won't spend all this time on this because we'll be talking about it all year.
Right.
You got two guys coming off the books, one making $11 million, one making almost $11 million. I believe they're going to re-sign Tavares if Tavares takes a lesser deal, because I think he wants to finish his career in Toronto. Now, within reason. Mitch Marner is going to ask for more than Nylander. And I believe, and this is not based on any information that I've heard from Brad Treliving, or it's just a feeling. I don't think the Maple Leafs are paying him that money.
Statistically, should he not ask for more?
No.
But based on his career stats and what he has done, should he not be asking for more? Not to say not anybody has to pay for it, but look at his stats versus the guy who we always pit him against.
He can ask for whatever he wants,
right?
But he is not the goal scorer that Nylander is. He is a playmaker, and the thing is, he has a skill set similar. Thank you, Convict. He's got a skill set similar to a playmaking distributing center. And now the thing that we discovered last year is that Austin Matthews was not dependent on Mitch Marner to be able to score goals. When did he have his most success? At the end of the year, when he was playing with Max Domi, who Max Domi is he's a converted center playing the wing, who's a very good playmaker. There is a substitute there for Mitch Marner for Austin Matthews. Not to say he's as good as Mitch Marner, he's not, but they offer similar skill sets. Right. What is necessary for this team going forward is to address the other areas of need with that money. Now, if Mitch Marner comes in and says, "I'll take $10 million," then that's a good value. Then I would say, "Okay,
we know that
he's not going to."
No.
So that's the situation. So the way this is played out is Mitch Marner. Now, there wasn't a trade, at least reportedly, that they came close to. But Mitch Marner made it clear that he doesn't want to go anywhere, which means if they try to make a deal, that he would exercise his no-move clause. So they're blocked by the no-move clause, and he's an unrestricted free agent. Unless he recants, he's here for the entire year. So the Leafs are going to say, play your best, put up your best, and then, you know what? Maybe we'll ask you at the deadline, but I don't think they'll do that because they'll be in contention. And then in July, they'll talk, but I don't think they're going to get close to what he wants and Darren Ferris will basically say, okay, we're going to the market, and he's going to lose out on $10 to $12 million because he's only going to be able to get a 7-year deal in free agency instead of an 8-year. But, he could have gotten an 8-year deal if he accepted a trade. He didn't. That's what's going to happen.
It's always about the money. Mitch Marner can subdue the masses by having a fantastic season and being a stalwart within the room and a really good citizen, somebody who projects well.
But
will he be able to check off all of those boxes and keep them checked throughout the season? That remains to be seen.
Norm, if he has a 100-point season and he doesn't show up in the playoffs, the Maple Leaf fan base will say, "See you later, Mitch. Thanks for the memories."
Bruce Arthur, say that fast 5 times. Bruce Arthur wrote about Mitch Marner in the Star this past week, and it was a tempered tone about a guy that a lot of people are irate over.
Mm-hmm.
He did make mention of the fact Mitch Marner is basically a point-a-game guy in the playoffs.
Well,
right. So again, statistically, you're going to have his camp build a case that suggests he deserves all of the money that he's asking for and that he hasn't been as bad as everybody thinks he is. I asked this question, is Mitch Marner essentially the scapegoat for the Leafs' failures in the playoffs? I mean, are we using him as a scapegoat, whether fairly and unfairly at the same time? A few minutes to go, Mike, and we'll wrap.
Yeah, I think he's the focal point because he's coming up on a contract. I mean, and the reason why he's a point per game player in the playoffs is because he had a massive first round against Tampa a few years ago. I think it was like 10 points or 11 points, and then he had like 2 or 3 against Florida. He's got 50 points in 57 games, so he's not exactly a point per guy,
right?
But a point per game guy, but he's close. But over the last
what are his colleagues playing to? Which clip are they playing to? How many points per game? Again, I'm not here to defend Mitch Marner. I'm just saying the stats are the stats.
Right.
And I am not going to be one to bully this guy throughout the season because I want him to, capitulate and say, look, trade me and get as much as you can for me. I'll do whatever I want. I'm not going to try to back him into a corner. I'm just saying that if this season is going to be a successful one, these parties have to come to terms with where they're at and where they may end up. Last word to you, Mike.
Yeah, well, let me just cover a couple quick things because we can talk about Marner all year.
Right.
One, the Hakanpää signing. The one thing I'm curious about here is that there's been no mention since the signing of what held up the signing earlier in the year, the rumored 2-year deal. He actually got paid more on the 1-year deal, AAV, than the 2-year deal. The 2-year deal was $1.25 million. The 1-year deal was $1.47.
Injury.
Well, the question is whether, this throughout the summer, his knee was bone on bone. We don't know if he can continue his career.
Right.
And now we haven't heard anything about that. So that's curious. the domino effect of the Robertson signing, the potential Pacioretty signing, and now the Hakanpää signing is somebody's going to need to go out. Maybe that means that Robertson gets moved. There's some talk about them waiving Connor Timmins. Maybe they trade somebody like David Camp. Who knows? I mean, we will see that, because they did that last year. They traded Lafferty out of training camp to clear space for Noah Gregor. And if you look at that, that was a bad move because Noah Gregor is a fourth liner, not really that good. And Lafferty, I think, was a little bit higher evolved player. The other thing was the rookie tournament in Montreal. Good first impressions for Fraser Minten, for Easton Cowan, for Topi Niemelä. How far these guys have evolved and how close they are will have some effect on the decisions that Treliving makes. Because I look at it here because I think Fraser Minten's starting in the American Hockey League. But if they think he's close and they think he can come up in the middle of the year, then that might free them up to trade a Camp or to trade someone else. Cowan is, I have a weird feeling, Norm, Cowan is going to be one of these situations where he's too good and too highly evolved to go back and play in London, and he may not be ready to play in the NHL.
So what do you do with him? Because it's one or the other.
You play him 9 games, you string him along until December. You send him to the World Juniors, and then you probably end up sending him back to London at that point. That seems to be the book on what teams do with these players.
What are the implications on that contractually?
Well, if it's 9 games, it won't kick in the first year of the ELC. So that's why 9 games. Now, they could play him more games than 9. And as long as it's not 40, then that starts the process towards unrestricted free agent.
But they don't need him, but they also have to recognize where he is in terms of his development. And that's the tough position for a player like that to be in. And this should engage a conversation with the league about players of this status and what to do with them. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, the league is not going to change. That's part of the CBA. The problem here is now, maybe they give him, there's one of 2 schools here, because I think he's going to stay with the team past the cut down. Is it going to be a Fraser Minten scenario where he plays 4 games, then he gets sent back to junior? Is it going to be a Zach Benson from Buffalo situation where he stays with the team and then they keep him past the 9 games and he plays the entire year? Right now, we don't know. So, I mean, it depends on how he plays at training camp. He played well in training camp last year as an 18-year-old. He scored a goal yesterday against Montreal. If he plays well with, Matthews or Tavares, then he's got a good chance at making this team. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, where does he slot in on the hierarchy of priorities? And is the brass that focused on protecting him and giving him an opportunity above others who may do better, in those positions and accomplish the things that Leafs need to have accomplished in this season, which is going to be another critical one, because regardless of what happens with Marner after this coming season, whether Nylander has another 40-goal campaign, whether Patches can slot in, whether Joseph Woll can officially become a number 1 and play, a full amount of games relative to, the 82-game schedule, the Leafs will be expected to compete and contend. OG's Converse, what else do you want from this team? Mike, what are you working on and where? And is there a Buffalo Bills game tonight?
No, they played on Thursday and beat Miami, and unfortunately probably ended Tagovailoa's career with a concussion, which was sad. No Bill. So it'll actually be a peaceful Sunday. I get to catch up on my writing at Hockey Buzz and at the Hockey News covering the Sabres. There's a rookie tournament here with 6 teams. So I was standing about 10 feet away from Sheldon Keefe. It looked really weird, him wearing a New Jersey Devils jacket. And I didn't see Kyle Dubas, but I probably will see him on Monday because the Penguins play the Sabres rookies.
Which other podcast can we listen to you on?
Off the Post Radio will be doing a show talking about rookie camp tonight at 5:00, and I'm also this show won't be out until later in the week. But the Ladies Talking Leafs podcast,
awesome.
who are great people, and we're going to be talking about the same things we're talking about today. So what the Leafs are going to do into camp, and looking forward to what's going to happen in the regular season.
T-Sack, great contributor to the show as always. I just want them to win a Game 7 for once. Don't we all? And if they don't next spring, all of this will have gone for naught. For Mr. Augello, I'm Norm. Ford employee pricing wraps up here in the next couple of weeks, guys. Come get your next car with me. You support me personally, you support Mike, and you support the show. That's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for being here. The Leafs Convo Season 7 continues on. Episode 2 is done. Thanks, Mike.
All right, talk